Hello and welcome back to my craft room. At last I have finished all of my art swap squares for the Great Big Little Art Swap, and I want some cards to send out with them, and I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to try out that cute snail mail stamp and die set that I was sent by FG Normal. So this is the company that sent me, they let me choose some bits and pieces that I would like to try for free and let my viewers know what I think of them, and so far I'm pretty impressed, I have to say. I will link to my unbagging a video that I did, and I'll also link to the products I'm going to use today and to FG Normal's website. Very impressed with them so far. The prices seem good, the service was really quick, everything seemed, I tried them out briefly the other day, but I didn't actually kind of make a project as such, and that's what I'm going to do today. So the idea is that I'm going to batch make a few cards because I need 20 odd to send out with my art swaps. So what I'll tend to do is stamp a whole load, die cut them, colour them, put them together, cottage industry fashion. So I will come back and show you the different stages, but first of all let's just have a look at the set and what you get, and I've cut the pieces out so that you can see, or most of them. Here is the little stamp set. Now this whole set, the stamps and the dies, was only $5.99, which I thought was really good. So here we go, you've got the cute snail, the little kind of stamp shape there, speech bubble heart, a couple of sentiments. This one's got a sentiment kind of included, this one's standalone, and a little cluster of mushrooms, which is really cute. I can imagine that kind of watercoloured in, it'd be really nice. Then you get all of these dies. So I've stamped all the pieces out. For instance, with this one, just to show you how they come out, oops, I've stamped it and then used the matching die to cut it out. And okay, you might be thinking, well, you could just cut that out with a pair of scissors, but there's lots of ways that it's really nice to be able to cut the image with a die. For a start, you can cut lots exactly the same shape. You can cut a lot of blank ones as well, so do them in a different colour like that and stack them up to get a chunkier kind of embellishment. You can also cut the shape, you can cut a window out of the front of your card and stamp the image inside so that it peeks through. There are lots and lots of different techniques you can do with these, having matching stamps and dies. There's a matching die to cut each of these shapes. So I've cut some of them there, but not all. Yeah, so we've got the two snails. This one would cut as well. I haven't cut it yet because I've left it uncut to show you something, which I'll come to in a minute. Same with this. You don't have to die cut them. You can stamp them straight on your card and just colour them in or whatever. You could do a little bit of decoupage and kind of do a fussy cut part of it, and perhaps just raise the body up so the body stands sort of standing a bit nearer to you if you like. You could also stamp the mushrooms on the base of the card and colour it, and then just die cut the snail to stand in front with give it a little bit of scenery, you know. There's also some dies which will just cut shapes which can be used on their own. So there's this big frame, and I love the way that I've cut this one out to show you. I love the way it's like a stamp. It's like the edge of a stamp, but it's got this sort of stitched detail, which is really cute. And of course, you know, you could use that as a mount. Just cut a little piece slightly smaller to go inside like that, and make a really nice little mount as a card topper. And then you could perhaps stamp the let's put it like that. You could stamp that snail on the inside it, because that would fit nicely in there. With the mushrooms, there is a die that fits that mushroom cluster, but you could also just cut it out with this frame like that as well. So there are a lot of different possibilities. The only thing I haven't been happy with so far is one down point. So this is this stamp, and I'm assuming it's meant to be cut out with this stamp shape, which I thought was perfect, except I don't like the way that's cut. That stitch line is too close to the perforations, and I could nudge it down very slightly, but I still think it would be too close. So I'm a little bit disappointed. I don't think I'm going to want to use it like that. I've thought of a different way I can use this, so I've cut an extra piece, and I'll show you what I think I can do with this in a minute, because I do love the idea of creating my own little stamp to go on the front of the Happy Mail envelopes. And this one I would now just kind of cut. So if I get a pair of scissors, I think I probably wouldn't bother with the die for this one. Well, this isn't really going to work because I haven't left enough of a margin around it. But I will probably just stamp it and cut round, you know, leave a little bit more of an edge around. I'll show you in a minute. I'll stamp that again and show you in a minute. So then there are some other shapes as well. There are two of these small mushrooms and one larger one, or toadstool. So here are the smaller ones. It's nice with the small shapes when you get more than one die, because if you want to cut a whole lot of these, it's nice not to have to go, you know, it's half the number of times you've got to go back and forth. And again with these you could cut several and glue them together, stack them up and glue them together, because they will match, they will be exactly the same size, and you can create quite chunky embellishments. It's almost like they've been cut out of a thick card, which you wouldn't be able to. These are good for, I think, you know, up to quite heavyweight cardstock like this, like you would use for, this was a scrapbooking card. I can't remember what weight it is, at least 180. It's, you can hear, and it cuts that very easily. This one's been cut out of that, and it's got a lovely finish. It cut beautifully, really easily. I also have used them to cut felt and thin cotton as well. I know that they would be up to cutting heavier fabrics, but they certainly cut thinner fabrics, and they do a beautiful job of felt. Also, craft foam cuts really nicely with these thin dies. You wouldn't think so, but it really does. That's the thing. I'm not going to be using that today, but I will come back and do another project using that, because there's lots of fun things you can do with that. There's this other die here actually, which I didn't know what it was for initially. Then I realised it's made especially for cutting out just that envelope. So you can cut that out as I've done here. Whoops. I mean, you could just cut out that out by hand, I guess, and stack them up, or use it to layer up. You could colour that separately and have her holding it in front or something, or tuck it in behind. All kinds of things you could do with that. There's the heart dies. Now those are quite nice to use just as they are. Oops, can't pick this up. They're quite nice to use just as they are, and I like that you get that little, can you see that little sort of indentation that you get, a little sort of almost embossed finish? I like that, and I would probably finish them with I've got like a shimmer pen that would give it just a sort of subtle sparkle, or even some glossy accents or something to make them really shiny. That would be quite nice to do. You could also cover them with embossing powder and emboss them or glitter them, or whatever, if you like that kind of thing. And then, as well as just being quite nice as standalone hearts cut out of coloured card or inked, you could ink plain card. You can also use it to cut out the stamped heart images as well, which could look quite cute, couldn't it? With the toadstools, I've cut a couple of different ones here just to be able to show you that quite fun technique when you've got dies with holes in like this is to do this sort of inlay thing. So you cut it in two colours and replace the missing holes with the other colour. So you just inlay it with the other colour. I'm doing this at arm's length, it's really hard. And obviously you would do this when it's glued onto the paper, or you'd put something sticky behind so it wouldn't keep getting away from you like these are getting away from me. But you can see the idea. That can look really fun. I love this little envelope. So there's the envelope die. I just think that is absolutely adorable. And you could cut lots of the hearts and drop them in like confetti, couldn't you? You could write a little secret note in there. You could stamp the hello onto here. So we've also got this piece, that was this one, this die, and you could stamp the hello on there. That would fit perfectly, or write someone's name and just drop it in there. How cute is that? I just love that. So that's all of the different bits. The reason why I left these uncut, for this one, it was just to point out that you could just do this with it and make a little painting with it. That'd be really nice. The reason I left this one is just to show you this. Now, can you see with this one, obviously when the die leaves a kind of a border all around the stamped image, and you want that border to be even. With this one, you can see it's not even. There's not enough space at this end, there's too much space at that end. I mean, it's a bit finicky, I suppose, but that kind of thing bugs me. I mean, okay, with this shape, it would be a very simple matter to just trim it. But if you then were stacking it up, if you'd cut some extra pieces so you could stack them up, but then it wouldn't fit. And also, you know, it's just annoying. So, and with the filia shapes, not so easy to just trim it always. So what I do is I cut, you can see here I've cut some of the die, some of the shapes out of this brown that I thought I wouldn't use for anything else. So this is the one, this is this shape. And what you can do before you do your die cutting is you can use this negative space to line it up perfectly. Another reason for cutting it out this dark brown is that you can see this more clearly on the camera. So you can take your time and line that up so you've got that nice even border all around. And then when you feel like you've got that just where you want it, you can take the matching die, so that's this one, and holding this firmly so it doesn't move, you can then just slot the die into place, and you feel it just click into place really easily. And then you can just take a little piece of tape, low tack tape, to just hold it in place like that. And then you know when you send it through your die cutting machine, it's going to cut with that perfect border all around. So I will tend to cut these little kind of jigs, little guide things for all of the pieces that I know I'm going to want to match up nicely. And the other thing I just wanted to point out, so I'm going to stamp and die cut one piece in a minute, just one piece. I'm not going to make you sit through it and watch me stamping and die cutting all of them, because it'll be the same process. And then when I've got a whole lot and I'm ready for the next stage, I'll come back again. So the other thing I just wanted to point out that I'm going to show you how to avoid really when I stamp in a minute is this. Can you see those two images? So that's using the same, obviously the same stamp. Can you see? That's it. So can you see that one on the right is really kind of blotchy and squidgy and not a very nice image, and the one on the left is a much nicer, cleaner image. I'm going to show you why that is and how to hopefully make sure that your stamped image comes out more like the one on the left than the one on the right. But I can only really do it because I'm using a stamping platform, which I'll explain in a minute as I go along. So I'm going to put my stamps to one side now, and all of my little pieces that I've cut. Let's just get all of this out of the way for a minute. I'm going to want my little jig I've cut for the speech bubble. I'm going to want my speech bubble die. I'm going to want both these stamps, so the speech bubble and the hello word. Well, another thing I think would be quite nice to do is just to put heart inside the speech bubble. It's only just occurred to me. That would be really fun, wouldn't it? Shall I do that this time? If you've never used these clear polymer stamps before, you just peel them off the backing when they arrive, and you need to put them onto a stamp block to use them, or ideally a stamping platform like I'm going to use in a moment. Obviously you'll need an ink pad as well. I'm going to be using this Memento ink because it's a dye ink, and it won't mind whether I want to use my alcohol markers, which I think is what I'm going to do, or whether I end up using water-based markers. This ink should be fine. So yes, you need some way of stamping. Now if you're just going to use a stamping block, then you're not going to be able to do it the way I'm showing you now. But it should be, small stamps like this are actually perfectly fine to use with a block. That's all I used to use anyway. But I've got this stamping platform, and it makes life so much easier. I'm definitely going to use it. I haven't got any stamp blocks nearby, but I'm sure everybody will know what they are. They're just clear, usually clear acrylic blocks or heavy plastic blocks. With this stamping platform, this has taken the place of the block. I've got this lovely smooth white cardstock that I like to use when I'm stamping, and it's quite nice to sort of cut colour on as well and use inks and things on. I've also got some smaller bits and pieces, some waste bits that I cut off when I was working the other day, so I will use these as well because these are quite small ones, and certainly if I'm just cutting dies in a minute to stack up and create depth, it doesn't need to be this card, which is more expensive. And I've got some smaller scraps of coloured card as well. I can use up quite small scraps to cut some of these pieces, obviously like these little mushrooms and things. So it's a good chance to use my small bits rather than go into brand new bits. Okay, so the thing that I just wanted to show you before I go away and do some mass stamping and die cutting and then come back was just this little tip about how to avoid this squidgy effect and get a nice clean image like that instead. So let's go for the heart first. Okay, so I'm just placed it face down, so the kind of the smooth back of the stamp is face up, and the raised part that's got the pattern is face down. I know this is going to seem absolutely ridiculously obvious to anyone who's stamped before, but if you haven't, you wouldn't know that, would you? And then I'm just bringing my door of my platform down, and that's picked up the stamp. It's now transferred to there. So now I'm going to get my ink. This Memento ink is great. I've had it for ages. It lasts really well because it's not got that kind of foam pad on the bottom that they do tend to disintegrate after a while. The camera doesn't want to focus because it's so black. But it does mean they last really well. Some of those spongy ones will kind of break down a bit, but this just goes on and on and on. And there it is. You can get refills as well. And I've only ever had to refill it once. I've been using this for years. So that's good stuff. It's good stuff. So just little taps of ink, and you might find the first time you ever use a stamp doesn't stamp that well. A lot of people kind of run the heel of their hand over it or wipe it with baby wipes and dry it off or whatever. I just sort of, because I've got this platform, I know I can go over it again, so I don't worry, I just do it. Now, this is where you have to start thinking about avoiding this squidged effect. What you want to do, you need to give firm pressure, but you don't want to really press really hard, because if you do, you just kind of squash the stamp. It's quite soft, this stuff, really. This isn't such a problem if you're using those kind of red rubber stamps, but with these type, if you squash too hard, you distort the shape. So what I do is just a gentle press and lift it up again. And I know, because it's on this platform, I need to get that out of the way. I'm working in such awful chaos here, you wouldn't believe. You would believe, because you can see it. I know with this platform I can just go back over again, and it's better to go over lightly several times and not press too hard. Usually with a tiny shape like this it's not necessary, but so you can see there now I've got a really nice clear image. Another advantage of using a platform like this is I can take it out like this, bring it up to the camera and show you how nice and clear that is if my camera would focus. And then I can just pop it back, making sure I've tucked it into that corner, my magnet's back on, and I could stamp over again and it would still go into exactly the same place. That's really handy. Sometimes if I'm going to colour in a lot of images, say I was going to put a whole load of cards through here, and I was going to colour that in, I will leave the stamp there, colour it in, and then go back over and redo the outline, because it will sharpen it up again. For today I don't need to do that. Oh, I do need to leave that there though. So now I'm going to put my speech bubble. So you can make the speech bubble go, so if that was a word, say it was the hello word written that way, I can make the speech bubble go that way round, or that way round, or up or down. It doesn't matter. It's quite adaptable, so whichever direction your snail's going, you can put it wherever you like. I'm going to have it like this. So I can place that exactly where I want. Again, the stamp is face down. Bring down my door to lift up the stamp. Tap gently with the ink. It's usually better to bring the ink pad to the stamp than the other way around. And just light pressure. I also got from FG Normal the other day this, they call it a stamping pressure brush. So especially if you're doing larger area stamps and you need to put a lot of pressure all over, you want a nice even pressure, you can do this. But for a small stamp like this, it's not really necessary. I might just go once more. I think I got this stamping platform. It was the cheapest one I could find at the time, the Tim Holtz one. Surprising, because Tim Holtz things aren't always so cheap. I got it in the range and it was like £21 or something. I thought it was brilliant value, and it is an absolute godsend. So there we go. That now is a nice, sharp, crisp image, not like this messy one. There's all kinds of other things I could do. I could emboss these images. I could do all kinds of things. I would have to use a different kind of ink for that, probably a pigment ink for that. All kinds of things I could do. Now I want to die cut this as well. So again, I'm going to use my jig. I'm just going to place it so I can see that the margin looks even all round. Hold that in place. It's easier if I do it flat. I'm happy with that. Hold it in place. Drop the die in and you can see it just snaps into place and doesn't want to move anymore. Get my little bit of tape, low tack tape. This purple tape's brilliant. It's expensive, but you can use it. I've used these pieces so many times. And just tape that into place. And now I'll run both of these through my die cutting machine and just quickly show you that in a minute. If you can do any die cutting, you do need some kind of die cutting machine. This is my trusty faithful old Cuttlebug, which I've had for donkey's years. I've had since about 2006 or 7. It cost me, I believe, $34.99 at the time. I think they're around 50 quid-ish off the top of my head now, I don't know. But they're worth their weight in gold. And you can get little dinky ones now that certainly would be big enough to put these dies through. But you do need to bear in mind that if you wanted to cut a whole card, actually cut into the actual card, it might not go through the dinky machines. but they usually will go through these. Along with the die cutting machine, you also need the cutting plates. They usually come with cutting plates, and you can replace these. And it probably is time I replace these. They're well manky, but hey, they still work. I sometimes find they leave scratchy marks and things, and I put bits of paper to protect it, but I'm not going to worry today. Right, let's run that through. And of course, you don't only have to put one through at a time, you can put several through at a time. I'm just quickly showing you this. There's all sorts of electronic versions of these machines and everything, but I like the hand crank. There we go. Perfect. Let's just run my other Mrs. Snail through. There we go, and another perfectly cut piece. And what I'm going to do now is, well, first of all, I'm going to go and cook dinner for my husband before he faints quite away, and and then I'm going to come back after dinner and I'm going to stamp a whole load of these. Probably I could colour them before I die cut, or the other way around, it doesn't matter. I might stamp them, die cut them, and then take them downstairs to cut this evening, and then come back tomorrow and assemble them. But whenever I come to a new stage, I'll come back and show you what I'm up to. I'm going to go off and do that, and I'll see you again in a bit, in just a second for you. Okay, it's the next day. I'm ready to carry on. I've pulled out a few more things and got myself sort of reorganised my desk a little bit after the mess I made doing all this cutting yesterday. And now I'm ready to move on to the next stage. So I thought I'll come back and show you what I'm up to. I apologise, before we go to the desk, I apologise for the mess. I haven't got time to tidy up and make, so tidying up didn't win. I've cut out lots of the words. Some of them I would just use single thickness like that. Some of them I'm going to stack up. I've cut out lots of the snails, and I've kept the top two where I didn't manage to, despite my little trick that I showed you, I didn't manage to cut them out straight. So I've got this sort of not an even border all around. You can see I've sort of up there, it's really obvious. So that will have not, I can't use that on a card, so I'm going to use these to practice my colouring and stuff on. It's always handy to have somewhere to just like practice. And I cut a few of them just blank without being stamped on, because I can use them to stack up behind to build up dimension. I've got a whole lot of the envelopes which I cut in this sort of slightly thinner pretty blue paper. It's got, you can't really see it, you can a bit actually, it's got this lovely mottle running through it. It reminds me of the old airmail envelopes. I thought that was appropriate. These were a couple of straight bits that I got to go on some more of these, but I forgot to cut another one of these. So I could stamp, like, say, the mushroom design on there. Plain red hearts, which reminds me, I've also dug out, I haven't had these out for a while, I used to use them a lot when I was card making. So these are pens that just give a little lovely subtle shimmer to something. So this one's the one that I first had, which is called Wink of Stella. And then there's also this one, there are several different brands that do a similar thing. This one's a Spectrum Noir, I think they call this a sparkle pen, yeah. And you get this, so you can put it over whatever colour ink or pens or whatever you've already used. It just gives this subtle kind of shimmer, not like glitter, which can be a bit too much sometimes, can't it? It depends on what you're doing. It just gives a bit of that subtle shimmer, and I thought it'd be really fun to use on snail bodies because they have that shine, don't they? A snail trail. I cut some of these, some of the little plain pieces, and I'm going to stamp they're going to go inside the envelope, so I'm going to stamp either the hello word or the heart or both on them. And for that I won't use my stamping block, my stamping platform that I used earlier. I'm just going to use this little stamping block. I'm going to just put one on one side and one on the other. So again, I'll be needing my Memento ink. So I used the Memento ink because I thought whichever pens I end up using to colour these, I know that the pen won't move. So speaking of pens, dug out a few alcohol markers in different colours. So I've got a mixture of types here. So these are the Copic Chow ones. I think we've had these in scrawler boxes. I quite like them, but it's a sort of limited range of colours. I found these Tombow alcohol markers as well. We probably had them in scrawler boxes too. Otherwise I don't think I'd have just bought an odd two like that. And then these tri-blend ones. Now I think we might have had some of these in a scrawler box, and then I went and bought some extra colours because I was so taken with them. And what I love is that partly they don't roll off all over the place because they're hexagonal, but you've got basically it's the magenta blend, but you've got 3 different shades. So this is the magenta blend, obviously. This one's ice blue blend. Yeah, it's all different ones, and each one has got a light, a medium and a dark of that colour in it, which is really handy when you're trying to blend and stuff. So yeah, I'm going to try those out. So there's some colouring like that. I am not going to film myself colouring all of these because I am not an expert colourer. There are lots and lots and lots of people on YouTube who are. And I just think it would be a bit mind-numbing to watch me colouring in my inept fashion. I've got some little cheapy foam pads, like sticky foam pads. They're sticky both sides basically once you take the backing off, which I might use just to give a bit of dimension as well. These I'm going to try something with in a minute. I've got some distress ink. I'm going to try colouring and just leaving a border. I'll show that in a minute. And of course I've got some card bases. These are cheap craft colour card bases, and I quite like the look of white against all colours against the craft, so I will use some like that. But I've also cut a few pieces just smaller than the size of this out of that smooth cardstock that I used to stamp on, so I can just put it on like that. I prefer to cut it slightly smaller and just kind of frame it like that rather than try and cut it exactly the same size and not get it quite right. It's easier just to deliberately leave a border, I always think. I can do a bit of inking on that if I want to as well, perhaps stamp a sentiment. So there's a few different things I want to try, and possibly when I've decided on which designs I like the best, I'll end up then churning out a few more of them and having them ready to go out with swaps in the future. I've got some glue stick, which can be really handy. I get this kind of thing, I try and avoid getting it wet as much as possible. So I can use a dry glue, I'll use a dry glue. I also keep double-sided tapes like this handy as well for sticking the layers together. But sometimes if you're sticking intricate shapes, you do need to use a wet glue, and I've got this fine nozzle one. You can also, when you're using die cuts, but you can get this double-sided adhesive sheet which you stick on the back of whatever. So this is just normal black card. You stick on the back of whatever, guess what I was cutting, whatever paper or card you're going to cut. So you peel off the backing, stick it onto the card, die cut it as I have there, and then you can peel off the other side of the backing like this, and it's sticky there. So that way the die cut piece is already glued for you, and got to bother about actual glue, and that can be really, really useful if you're doing intricate pieces. But it isn't the cheapest thing, so I thought I'd try it without. So I think what I'll do now is start working through the process, put all my components together first. In other words, I've got to colour these snails, add my little bit of twinkle, fold up all my envelopes, stamp my little notes, do my little trick. I hope it's going to work with this to make a little cute stamp to go on the outside of my envelope. Not sure what I'm doing with these yet. And then what I tend to do is, if I've got extra bits cut out like this, I'll keep it with the stamp set. So like next time I use this stamp set, I've already got that done. And one of the advantages of having them die cut out like this is I can use alcohol markers or whatever on it, colour it in, and then apply it to the outside of the card. If I stamped this on the card and coloured straight on there, if the colour comes through to the other side, that's going to look horrible. Whereas if it's done on a separate piece, it's not going to show, is it? I think with these ones, I'm going to put at least one more layer behind them, maybe even two, just to make them a bit more sturdy. I'm going to see if a Pritt stick will work for this. Okay, let's see if this is man enough for the job. Let's make sure they're nice and accurately stuck together. So even just those two layers just makes it so much, you know, more of a sturdy piece to put on my card. It just looks better, I think. Okay, so I'm going to go through and stick a whole lot of these together. Another nice thing that when I'm sticking the words together, I can use contrasting colours. I can also use for the back layers, I can use, like here, it was a waste piece where I got some ink on it, but I can use that up just as a backing piece. And I quite like doing this where you've got a contrasting colour behind. So sometimes it looks nice to have a colour in the front and the black in behind to make it stand out against the card more. Not really enough layers to see it, but you can see what I mean. If I stack enough layers, you get that contrast of, you get that almost a black outline, quite outline, but yeah, really helps to make it stand out. You could slightly offset it like that if you wanted to. I'm going to listen to my audiobook and I'm going to start sticking a few of these together, and then I'm going to have a bit of an experiment with the colouring on there. And the Pritt stick seems to be working absolutely fine there. I can also put just one little sticky pad behind there to hold it off the page a little bit more, because one of my ideas is to tuck the little envelope in behind the snail so the recipient can take the envelope out, open it up and find the tiny note inside. Oh, that'd be cute. Right, I think I'll stick a whole load of these together now first, and then come back and see you. Can be quite handy to have a little pair of tweezers to hold things by. And another little handy tip, when you want to get rid of some of the excess glue or spread it round a bit, rather than use your fingers, use the back of your hand, because that isn't going to come into contact with your cards and things and get them all messy and dirty. Yeah, let's just sort of spread the glue out a little bit and taking off the excess. And when you're matching up these more intricate shapes like this, nothing beats the wet glue, because it just gives you that tiny bit of wiggle room. See that excess glue that's come off on my hand there? If I hadn't done that, that would be squeezing out all over the place here and making a mess. Right, so I've been busy. See how much glue has ended up on the back of my hand. But that would be all over my... I know me, it would be all over the bits and pieces otherwise, and it would make them all messy, and yeah, they wouldn't, you know, if you get glue on them, they don't take the pens right and stuff. So yeah, this is a good tip for me. And I quite enjoy peeling it off later. So I've folded up all my little envelopes. I've stacked up all of the, just get them out of the way for a minute. I've stacked up all of these so you can see they're quite, you can hear they're quite substantial little pieces now. And the same with these. I've kept these two just single layer just to experiment with my colours, because they were the Duff ones. What I've been doing is when I've been gluing the layers together, I've put this heavy, it's an old stamping block, I've been putting that over the top to weigh them down so they glue together. I've even stacked up the hearts as well, and some of these which I thought would be nice to go inside the envelopes, these I've stacked up with like hello on one side and heart on the other. I thought it'd be quite cute. Stacked those up as well. Probably not going to be using these toadstools, they're the only bits I won't be using today really. I need to stamp these now, and I need to try the little trick I'm hoping will work for these. So I've got some, it's time to start adding some colour basically now. So I've got my markers and things ready to start experimenting with these. Just use a piece of this to scribble on and see what colours I'm going to get. I'm not going to be going for realistic snails, because clearly they're not. Though I might make parts of them grey just to give a bit of light relief. I don't know. We'll see how we go. I'll experiment a little bit. I probably should have just stamped a few out on paper just to try out really. So like I say, with these, the nice thing about these tri-blend markers is that you get light, medium and dark tones of the same colour in each pen, so you can very easily blend them together and just get nice easy blends. This is actually some kind of watercolour paper, so it's not the best thing to use these on, but you can see how easily those blend. I haven't got to think about going and finding another shade of blue that will blend nicely, because all three shades are in the same pen. So that is really nice. They're not cheap, these though, I must admit, and I don't think they'll last forever because they're alcohol based either, so I should use them more. Just thinking this antique pink might look nice as quite a nice warm pink. Yeah, that's quite cute. I quite like that. I'm just wondering about doing that for the body, because it looks sort of fleshy. See, if that was coming through your actual card, it would be annoying, wouldn't it? I think this grey, this soft grey, would do if I want a shadow. It's just soft enough to just go over the top and just add a bit of darkness to another colour like that. So that's probably where I'll go with that one. I've gone all over with a lighter colour first. Now I'm going to use the middle one to give me some little shading at the edge, and maybe just go up here a bit as well actually. And then maybe the darkest one of all just underneath here. It just gives me a little bit of shading. Right, okay. I will probably want to darken in the eyes. Just going to use a little Sharpie. I'll probably just put a little white dot in there in a minute when that's dried up. Okay, just to give the eyes a little bit of life. Just keeping slightly inside the lines because I know this might tend to bleed out a little bit, but it seems to be okay. And certainly it's fine with the Memento ink, which is good. As you can see there where it has bled slightly outside of the lines there. I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'll just bear that in mind. I don't mind the look of it really, but you can see that it's not smudged the actual stamped ink at all, so I don't need to worry about that. Right, so what colour do I want the shell? Just try stopping slightly short of the lines this time to allow it to bleed out a little bit. I think that's going to be the trick. So I'm going to do the same thing again because that seemed to work before. I'll just go all over with this lightest shade first. And of course you can also just go over and do another layer of the same colour to deepen the shade as well. I love the way they smooth out, even if they look slightly scribbly when you put them down. They smooth out. You can see where that body is now. You haven't got any scribble lines left anymore. That's my little snail. Of course, that's a duff one. It's because it's the crookedly cut one, but that's enabled me to work out how I'm going to do it. It's going to be quite simple. This one will be equally simple. I might introduce another colour where the stripes are, and colour the presents in different colours. And then when I've done that, I've got my either the Spectrum Noir Sparkle pen or my Wink of Stella pen, whichever. I'll show you the Wink of Stella since I showed the Spectrum one earlier on. You get these in kind of gold and stuff as well, but I think these are just the plain ones I've got. I hope there's still some juice left, and it seems to be. So what my thought was that I would put this over the body where you've got that sort of sliminess of the slug. I knew this will be glittery instead of slimy, which I quite like the idea of. You can sort of see it there. In real life it's a really pretty, just subtle shimmer, not like glitter. And it doesn't come off at all once it's dry, which it probably already is. It dries pretty fast. It doesn't come off. So that's really nice. So I'm going to do that on them as well, just to give them a bit of extra fun. So I'm going to work through now and colour all of these, and then I'll come back to you when I'm ready for the next stage. I've finished all my colouring now. Quite enjoyed doing that. Caught up on a few videos I've been meaning to watch for a while. So they've all now got the little oh yeah, look, the camera's picking it up now. Look, that just sort of subtle twinkle that you get with that Wink of Stella, which I really love. And I put little dots of light in each of the eyes as well. You could actually put little Google eyes, stick on Google eyes on there, couldn't you? So that'd be quite fun. So I'm almost ready to start assembling. I've got the words, I've got the focal points. Oh, I did this one as well. Just coloured it in as I'd got it stamped there. I thought I might as well. And I found that the pen sort of bled slightly outside the line, so I got my little fine Sharpie I was using to black in the eyes, and I just did some extra scribbly lines around the illustration just to sort of hide the fact that my pen was bleeding a little bit. But I think it looks fine, and that would sit nicely on the little frame that we've got the die for as well. Maybe not in pink, but although it's okay. I'd probably want that in green actually, it'd be quite nice. But anyway, just thought I'd show you what that looked like. And you could use these extra little mushrooms as well as extra little embellishments. I also wanted to just see if I can make this idea work with that I've got in my mind for this stamp to go on the outside. Just want some little small pieces of this low tack tape, and I'm going to make it even less tacky by putting it on my put it on my clothes or my skin a couple of times and I'm just going to tape it down, leaving just a little white margin all around. Hopefully, I think you can see that. It's not quick making cards, even if you do them kind of mass production kind of stuff like this. It's not a quick thing to do, but it is quite satisfying, and it does mean you're giving people something you've made yourself that no one else is going to give them one like it. Well, I'm going to try with the yellow for this. So I've got this yellow. I've just got Distress Oxide ink because I've got that handy, but you could use any kind of ink for this, or you could just do it with watercolour paint or pens even. I just don't want to do this. And I'm just using this, I use these little blender brushes. They're really soft and densely packed bristles. You can wash them if you buy them as cosmetic brushes rather than look in the craft section. It seems to be cheaper. And you can get them really cheap on Temu and places now as well. So yeah, they make blending inks and things really nice. They're lovely to use with stencils as well. You can use them with paint too. So what I'm hoping is that's going to give me a nice background that I can then stamp on. I'm going to leave that taped down until I've stamped on it because it'll help to keep it still. What I'm hoping is I can make this look like a little stamp. I'm going to put the hello word on one side of this stamp block, and I'm going to put the little heart on the other. And you could use whatever things you might, little stamps. There's usually a couple of like little pieces and little words and things. You could use words from another set, you know. So before I use the stamping platform, this time I'm just using the block because I haven't got any room here, and hopefully I won't need the stamping platform. Hopefully I can get a good enough impression with this without needing to do that. Famous last words. Okay, let's get me memento out again. And normally I bring the ink block to the stamp. But sometimes when it's a small stamp it's easier to do it the other way around. Let's see how we go. So unlike with the stamping platform, I don't have a second chance this time. That's okay, it went down fine. Keep these pieces of tape to use again, because if I like this I'll do it a few times. Oh, I do think that is quite cute. I think maybe I've got the placement a bit wrong. I need to make it look more central perhaps. I don't know, or I could put another heart or something else above it. But I quite like the idea. I think it kind of has that look of a stamp. So I will knock out a few of these to stick on the front of my envelopes. The only other thing I'll be using for colour now is say I'm making up this card, and I want this one. And I want it to look just like a bit of sky behind it, and I might want it to sit on, perhaps I want it to sit on the word hugs and a bit of effect of kind of sky behind it, something like that. There's all sorts of different things I can do here, so I could just as well put one of these with a little probably want to go the other way with that one. It's nice that you can just stamp the word and then make the speech bubble go in whatever direction you like. There's so many different combinations I can do here. One of my ideas is to use these little sticky pads like this and just stick my snail down with one of those behind, and then I'll glue my envelope together. I've done that one. Glue my envelope together, put my little message in. Oh, the other thing I need to do, but I will do with the stamping platform, is stamp a little word on here. I'll probably just stamp the hello on there. But what I hadn't realised is it perfectly fits the front of the envelope, and that's quite a nice little embellishment too. So yeah, I'll do whatever I decide to do with them, but I quite like the idea of being able to tuck the envelope in behind the snail, so the snail's almost kind of bringing the mail. So say I think I'm going to want to put the word hugs there. Let's imagine I'm going to put hello there, and then I know I'm going to want the snail sort of sitting there. That means I'm going to want some sky behind it, just sort of there. So I'm going to just eyeball that and then just do a bit of, just a little suggestion of sky. And this lovely smooth white cardstock and these lovely soft blending brushes are perfect for doing this with. Don't want to make it too big. It was the small one I was using, wasn't it? Where's she gone? Yeah, don't want it too big. Yeah, that's probably enough. Just to give something for it to stand out against, really. Okay, so I'm going to finish getting my all my components ready, and then I'll come back and just assemble some of the cards for you to see how they go together. I'm ready to start finishing some cards now, so let's take my first card base. Here's that white piece that I inked the little sort of patch of sky on earlier, so that will sit on the card base that way. So I need to use double-sided tape to do that. That one's all gone. You could use wet glue on this, but sometimes it just warps the card a little bit and it doesn't look very nice, so I prefer to use this double-sided tape. One thing I like to do when I'm using this is to just burnish it down really well with whatever I've got to hand, partly because that makes it stay stuck better, but also because it just makes it easier to get the annoying backing paper off, which can be quite tricky. I don't take it off all the way, I just take it off part way like that and fold it back, and then because the tape isn't completely off, I just have got a little bit more wiggle time to get it placed just so, and then when I'm fairly confident I've got it in the right place, then I can press it down and pull these last bits away, and then it's fully stuck. Otherwise it just kind of grabs a bit too quickly. So for this one I'm going to use the hugs in the green. Centre that on the card. Just eyeballing it, not worrying about measuring anything because me. And then let's grab one of my little snails. She could just sit there. So this is a really straightforward one. That's all I'm going to do for that one. I think that's enough. And then I would usually just put something heavy on it like that, just while it dries, and I move on to the next one. So should we do one with just do the white on the plain craft background this time? Right, so now I'm going to use one of these little sticky foam pads. Now I'm just going to put that one. I think that'll be enough to hold it. And I want to just sit this so that she's sort of slightly overlapping the word, but obviously you still need to be able to read the word. There we go. Quite cute. Don't think I need to do anything else there. Now I've got these envelopes ready because I wanted, with some of them I wanted to try putting a little note inside. So I've got my little hello notes. With a little note inside. Oh look, I could even put a heart over it. And tuck it in behind the snail so that the recipient can take out the envelope and look at the note. So I'm going to put one of those there with her. There we go. I think that's quite cute. Number 3. So now I've got all the components ready, I'm just motoring through. I did get these ready to go with these little stamps. Little faux stamps to go on the outside of the envelopes, and I'll put these on the back to seal the back of the envelope, something like that. Maybe, I don't know what yet really. There we go. I'm not going to do the sky this time, I'm going to leave it like that. I think that'll be enough. Hello, hello. I can't put hello, hello though. That won't work, will it? Okay, let's put hearts with this one then. Oh, I didn't stick this down to the card first, did I? Right, okay, I need to let that all set then before I start fiddling about with that, I think. That was stupid. Let's do one where we stamp on this first. Do that little bit of sky. I'm going to put it right in the middle this time. Stamp my snail there. Now I'm going to put my double-sided tape on, get it positioned nicely, and then when I'm happy with it, press it down, pull the rest of the tape away. And now I can put the little snail over the top. Well, no, because that's blue as well. I want a different colour. Let's go for that one. Just leave that with a bit of weight on it for a minute. So if I wanted to do the same thing with this one, with a simple one with just a stamped image, where can I? Yeah, that isn't going to work because the U is going to be, unless I just don't use the U and just use the snailed it. Oh no, look. Okay, for eventualities like this, I've got this Tombow sand eraser, which hopefully will take that ink off. Doesn't always work, but sometimes if that sort of thing happens, I can just put a little embellishment over it. But this isn't really in the right place for that. Okay, I'm going to have to turn over and use the other side, I think. Let's keep this one very simple and just glue it on. Oh, and again, I've forgotten to stick it to the front of the card, so I'm going to have to wait until that's thoroughly dry before I do that. So I think I've kind of shown you all the different types of things that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to work through and finish up all of these pieces that I've cut now, and then I will come back and show you how they look. Okay, so it is the next morning and the sun is shining outside. I didn't finish these until quite late last night, so it was too late to film the results, but I'm ready to show you now, and I'm really happy with how they came out. I probably will make a few more of these while I've got everything out, so then I've got them handy ready for my next swap. In the end, I really, for the colouring, I used mostly these Spectrum Noir Tribe blend. They were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I should use them more often. I also used these three colours of distress ink, so I've got Broken China, Worn Lipstick and Fossilised Amber. And I used the shimmery pens, the Wink of Stella and the Spectrum Noir Sparkle, to give me that little glimmer on the snails' bodies. So there's the stamp set, there's all the dies that came with it. So this stamp set and the dies together were $5.99, and then I also used these two words, and these were $1.99 each. Brilliant, I'll be using them for years. There's also a thanks word, which was only 99p, it's a tiny bit smaller. I used my blending brushes, and that was it. Right, let's have a look at the results. I'm well chuffed with these. And I've still got little bits left, like I've got lots of the little envelopes. I'll put them away in a little bag. I've got lots of the little hello thingies, and I've got these to go on the outside of my envelopes, which I think will look really cute. And I could even stamp directly on the envelopes as well. I could just put it on a little, you know, one of the small stamping block. I could put little hearts on there and colour them in, or just use snailed it. You know, I won't do these all now, but I'll just show you. If you like making cards and things, and you want something to put on your wish list for Christmas, these are brilliant. My husband got me this a few years back. I hadn't asked for it. He thought of it by himself, and but he let me choose the type font, and I went for this kind of typewritery looking one because I quite liked it. So with this you can press as hard as you like because it's a solid rubber stamp. You don't have to worry about squidging it like I was saying about with these polymer stamps. Okay. Little finishing touch. It's nice to have. I don't know how much he paid for it. I don't know. I can't even tell you. Let me show you the manufacturer though. This is for the UK, but I mean you can get these all over the place. There we go. Just so you can pick that up in case you fancy getting hold of one of them. There we go. So yeah, that was one of the simplest ones to do, and actually I probably like it the best. It's definitely one of my favourites, and that was stuck directly to the card. This one I've actually used the foam dot and put the little envelope, tucked it in behind so that it's got a little message in there. This one I went straight, and that was just scribbly lines with the fine liner. That one I went straight on the base card. I quite like the look of that. Simple. That's got a little envelope tucked in again. And a hello. That was using that little stamp frame thing. Okay. Some of the hearts. I think I'll use the heart dies a lot. It's a nice little shaped heart. Yeah. That one I haven't tucked a thing in behind because I couldn't make it look right, so I left it, but it's got an envelope here, so you snailed it. And that was the toadstool bit. I thought I might as well put that on a card and use it, and I think it was quite cute like that.
I didn't use so many of these speech bubbles in the end. Oh. A bit different this one. Use some of that green. Put the two snails on together because they face each other quite nicely, don't they? So yeah. So I'm going to spread these out now to get my thumbnail. So that's it. I'm all done. Those are ready to go in the post now. It's a really fun thing to do once you get on a roll with it. Once you've got the design in your head and you're just like cutting out so many, colouring in so many, stacking them up. You know, you can do them on a kind of cottage industry basis. They're actually quite quick to put together, and it's nice to have a whole stack of them ready to go. And I do think these little snail creatures are quite cute. I could use them for all kinds of occasions. It doesn't have to be about snail mail as such. Just to send birthday wishes or Valentine or, you know, yeah, anything at all really. I love snails. I will leave links to the products I've used and the FG Normal website, so you can check it out if you'd like to. Thanks again to them for sending me those. I really appreciate that. It was fun to play with, and I was very impressed with them. That's it for me today. Thanks very much for joining me. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, whatever you're up to. It's going to be a lovely sunshiny one for us, but not too hot, which is such a relief. Cheerio for now, and I will see you again really soon.